really matter.
Communication is so critical, Jeremy, and you can see that from some of the points that you make. But it was kind of humorous to see you talking about meetings becoming a significant time waster in many companies. And everybody can relate to this, and the old adage that this could have been done by email. And it's almost like got worse post-pandemic because everything is kind of gone on to Teams and various digital meeting platforms. So it seems to me that people are having more meetings. They may not be face-to-face, but there's more time spent in meetings. What are your recommendations for handling meetings effectively, and under what criteria should meetings be held?
Shane, I think meetings are actually part of the overall jigsaw, actually. So the book talks about an integrated approach to running a business. And it talks about, as we've said before, it talks about a rational and emotional side. It talks about a vision. It talks about a management model. Your listeners will be saying, well, what's that got to do with the questioning that Shane's just asked it? And the answer to the question is, if you have all those pieces in place, it helps you enormously in managing your time. So let's take a chief executive, for example. We talked about managing by agenda. We talked about that there's an execution agenda. We talked about there's a strategy agenda. We talked about there's a regulatory and mandatory agenda. So my first thought is, if I am being invited to a meeting and it is not linked to those agenda, I will decline it, right? So strictly speaking, I mean, this is very simplistic, but strictly speaking, I only have two buckets of meetings. I have those that were linked to the management agenda, and I have those which were linked to the governance of the organization, which might be the executive committee, the board, and one-to-ones. If it wasn't in those two buckets, my default position would be, you don't need me there because that is not a good use of the company's time. So tip number one would be, understand those things which really matter in terms of contributing to the governing objective of the organization, and then be ruthless in terms of whether you go to that meeting or not. Okay, so